Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be on field of view, or FOV for short, and there are only a couple of points I want to mention in this video which can be used to analyse and improve your aim. So field of view is the viewing angle visible on screen within the 360 degree aiming environment. If it's set to 180 degrees, you would then be able to see half of the whole viewable area from your character on screen, and turning around would show you the whole other half. If it's set to 90 degrees, like the default is in CSGO, then you could turn to the right 90 degrees and get a whole new picture on your monitor. And again, if you turn another 90 degrees, you'd get another new picture on your monitor. And again, another 90 degrees, get a whole new image, before you return to your original position if you turn again another 90 degrees. Now, for the most part, that information is meaningless, so it's important to cover monitor match distance and how this affects your perception with how you aim. Monitor match distance is the distance from the center of your screen to the edge of it. So if you're in a game, it's basically where your crosshair is up to the edge of your monitor, either on the right side or the left side. If you increase or decrease your field of view, you can see the change is affecting the visibility on the edge of the screen. Mostly this point stands for those people that do use different FOVs between games, or even people that use scoped weapons. With different FOVs, your perception is affected because it takes a different amount of movement to aim to the edge of the screen. And specifically with scoped weapons, the games try and account for this by reducing your sensitivity for a more natural feel. And still, for some people, this can feel off and they'll go in and amend their scope sensitivities too. Some people even set their scope sensitivity to be exactly the same as their normal sensitivity via the monitor match distance calculations. The default field of view with the latest HDEG engine is 103, so games like Apex and Valorant use this FOV by default, where older games use a 90 degree FOV system. Now that the perception side has been covered for the variation between FOVs, I just want to go over one point I picked up in the Voltape benchmark advice video, and in there it's suggested to increase your field of view in like wide wall type scenarios. However, for me personally, I feel this does nothing for your ability or perception at all, because back in the reduced FOV environment, most likely the stimulus received is audio or footsteps, which will cause you to turn that way, and you would not have increased FOV back in this environment to visibly see them. So all increasing FOV does is allow you to train further distance motions with your aiming, because you're allowed to see those targets, which is effectively just training on a slightly lower sensitivity anyway, just a little bit longer movement. Not only that, you don't train the responsive side of turning around and needing to adjust after a target is presented to you during that turnaround. If you're in the range, you can pick up on the sound and flick accordingly as demonstrated here. However, when there's subtle sound, I feel there's way more benefit to target acquisition, like would be exhibited in a real game, as opposed to just cheesing your field of view higher to train low sensitivity motions. Take that however you want though. I think obviously Voltape are a fantastic group and I have nothing but respect for all these communities helping each other to strive for the best ways. And as always, I'm up for discussion on any of these points. My aim is to get the ball rolling with everyone to gather the best advice, so that's just my approach with field of view in general. That being said, the points so far have been more of a reasoning for why your movement can feel off between different FOV games, and not a scolding into using the same FOV for every game. I know myself, for example, I use 110 in Apex Legends, so I tend to go more on the side of as high as I can. Now moving on to the method, and this is a flip side from increasing FOV really, it's actually reducing your FOV to painstakingly low levels. A friend of mine, Jose, helped me with this technique and it was just something I didn't really think of, and I still use it to this day now and again, just to properly take note of the results of my movements on screen. You choose a basic task, like this one, set your FOV to around 10 and the target size large. The result is that you get a normal task to play in, but your aim is extremely zoomed in. You'll be seeing more on a pixel level how precise your movements are. If you see it's not great, maybe you can work on that, even improve what was naked to the eye beforehand, when we were seeing thousands of pixels in our usual zoomed out format. The tricky part here is that learning is very difficult to do. It's basically the bare bones of your aiming or controllability, so mastery towards a pixel level like this would be absolutely phenomenal. If you try this, you're expected to see inconsistency just like demonstrated in the previous DPI videos, where the lines appear jagged because you could see which pixels were being activated. I was going to include calculations for translating 2D sensitivity into 3D environments, so you could say use your desktop sensitivity in-game, or even converting sensitivity into different scope magnifications. But that does require the game values of how much the FOV zooms in, so it can be quite specific to the game itself. And there's already resources online for people to do this anyway. I've seen online converters for Widowmaker scope values and config files for Apex. The only other thing worth mentioning is for those people that do struggle with scope sensitivity, look up monitor match distance as mentioned before. There are values for 25%, 50, 70, 100, and these relate to where on screen you want your sensitivity to match. If it's set to 100%, then your sense out of scope is going to match the sensitivity in the scope. These are important values because the more our FOV zooms in, our sense must also decrease relative to the change in perception, or the movement is just going to feel completely off. The next video in the series is going to be Raw Excel, so that's going to be a bigger one. And as always guys, I hope you enjoyed and I'll catch you in the next one.